So I want you to think about this. Your brain processes roughly 11 million bits of information every single second.
Right, which is just a staggering amount of data.
It really is. But out of those 11 million bits, you are consciously aware of only about 40 of them.
Just 40. Wow.
Yeah, just 40. And honestly, most of the time, that biological autopilot is a total blessing. I mean, it keeps you sane on your evening commute, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It guides you through like a late night road trip, or it walks you down your own street to your front door without you having to overthink every single footstep.
We completely rely on the predictability of those spaces to feel safe.
Exactly. We need that predictability. But for this deep dive today, we are looking at what happens when one of those 40 bits of conscious awareness is a sudden, just blaring signal that you are being hunted.
And that is a profound shock to the system. I mean, it completely shatters that foundational illusion of safety.
It really does.
Because the environment itself hasn't changed, but the script you were relying on has suddenly flipped.
Which perfectly brings us to the core of today's deep dive. We are examining a collection of first-hand accounts that were originally shared on the YouTube channel, Mr. Nightmare.
Yeah, these are intense.
Very. They are 3 disturbing, totally true stories of terrifying encounters with strangers. But our mission today isn't just to share spooky campfire tales for the listener.
Right. There's a lot more to it than just the shock value.
Exactly. We're going to use these raw, unfiltered accounts to really unpack the psychology of survival and situational awareness.
Because we want to understand the actual mechanics behind human instinct, right? How predatory behavior functions in plain sight.
Yes, and how your brain reacts when a totally ordinary situation inexplicably turns dangerous.
And I think the real value in studying these specific accounts is that none of these victims were wandering into obviously dangerous, forbidden places.
No, not at all.
They were in completely mundane, everyday settings. Yeah. Analyzing these moments gives us a sort of masterclass in how predators exploit normal social routines.
Right.
And more importantly, how our nervous systems are hardwired to detect when something is profoundly wrong, even if we, lack the immediate vocabulary to explain why.
Well, let's start with this first account because it perfectly illustrates exactly that point. We're looking at a 17-year-old boy traveling from Georgia to North Carolina.
Right, and he's with his dad.
Yeah, his dad works as a truck driver. So they pull into a rest area around midnight. The lot is packed with semi-trucks, but obviously the drivers are all asleep in their cabs.
It's essentially deserted.
Yeah, exactly. So around 2% a.m., the teenager decides to use the restroom. He grabs his razor to line up his mustache, assuming entirely logically that the building is going to be completely empty at that hour.
Well, he's operating on the assumption of solitude.
Right.
He is letting his guard down because the environmental context, 2% terarium at a sleepy rest stop, strongly suggests he'll have the space entirely to himself.
But he walks into the left side of this massive restroom, and his assumption is just immediately shattered.
Because someone is in there.
Yeah. There is a man standing near a urinal. And the storyteller notes this guy is very tall, like around 6'4", and looks to be in his late 30s or maybe 40s.
Okay, so a significant physical mismatch there.
Oh, totally. So the teen just goes into a stall, does his business, washes his hands, but the man is still just standing there.
Not actually doing anything.
Right. Finally, the man unzips his pants and begins using the urinal. So to get some physical distance, the teen moves all the way over to the completely separate right side of the restroom to use the mirror and shave.
Which is a smart move to create distance.
Yeah, but then, 10 seconds later, the tall man abandons the left side and follows him over to the right.
And see, in the study of situational awareness, we are constantly looking for anomalies in baseline behavior.
And this is definitely an anomaly.
The huge one. The baseline behavior for any public restroom is universal, right? You get in, do your business, get out.
Yeah, nobody hangs around.
Yeah.
Exactly. Following a stranger to a different, isolated section of an empty bathroom violates that baseline entirely. It is a massive behavioral anomaly.
I really want to dig into that specific moment because here is where it gets incredibly unsettling. The teen takes out his razor to start shaving, and the man suddenly stops directly behind him, looking visibly shocked.
Because he sees the razor.
Right. The teen tries to stay calm, keeps lining up his mustache, but he's watching the guy's reflection in the mirror.
That had to be terrifying.
Oh, I can't even imagine. So the man walks to a urinal on the side, pretends to unzip his pants, but just stares directly at the teen in the mirror.
He's not even trying to hide it.
No. And then the man nods at him. The teen terrified, nods back.
Ah.
Then the man goes into an empty stall, and when the teen glances back a moment later, the man is standing completely still in the dark corner of the stall, wide-eyed, just staring at him.
Okay, so this is a textbook demonstration of predatory mimicry.
Predatory mimicry.
Yeah. The predator knows he needs to blend into the environment to avoid triggering an immediate flight response from his target.
Okay, so I've always thought of this behavior like an NPC.
An NPC, like in a video game.
Yeah, like a non-player character experiencing a glitch. It's like the programming is broken.
Yeah.
He is loading the physical animation for using the urinal or standing in a stall, but he's not actually executing the action.
That's a great way to put it.
Right, he's just wearing the costume of normal human behavior to mask the fact that he is setting up an ambush.
That analogy perfectly captures the uncanny valley effect the victim was experiencing there. The mimicry is basically a camouflage technique.
And what about the nod?
Yeah, that nod you mentioned, that was not a polite late-night greeting.
It wasn't just him saying, hey.
No, that was a compliance test. Predators frequently initiate a minor, seemingly harmless social interaction to gauge your awareness and your passivity.
So by nodding back.
By nodding back, the teenager signaled that he was aware of the man, but he also engaged in the social contract. He played along.
Wow. Which brings us back to the razor. Because he brought it to line up his mustache, which is a totally mundane reason.
Right.
But it ended up in his hand right as he had to walk past this massive 6'4" guy to exit the bathroom.
And that introduces the concept of predatory calculus.
How so?
Well, predators, generally speaking, are looking for the path of least resistance. They want an easy target.
Right, they don't want a fair fight.
Exactly. When the man followed the teen and suddenly saw a razor in his hand, his expression of shock was the real-time processing of that calculus changing.
Oh, wow. Because suddenly the kid has a blade.
Right. The target was now armed, even if it was completely unintentional. It introduced a variable of physical risk that the predator just hadn't planned for.
So for you listening right now, think about what you have in your pockets or your hands while you are listening to this. If a predator initiated that dark calculus on you in this exact second, what unintentional deterrence do you have?
It's a sobering thought.
It really is. Because for this teen, that little razor likely stopped an attack. He gets out of the bathroom, sprints back to his dad's truck, and locks the door.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, but wait. A few minutes later, he looks over at a dark, separate lot designated for passenger vehicles. There is a single red car sitting there with its headlights illuminating the pavement.
Oh, no.
And the absolute second the teen looks at it, the headlights instantly shut off.
That is a chilling postscript.
Isn't it?
Yeah, and it totally redefines how we need to think about isolation.
What do you mean?
Isolation doesn't just mean being 100 miles from civilization in the wilderness. Isolation means being out of the protective, waking view of your pack.
Ah, I see.
This teenager was mere yards away from his father, but because his father was asleep inside a heavy truck cab, the teen was functionally and totally isolated.
So the predator saw that.
Yes, the predator recognized that vulnerability and exploited the geometry of the rest stop to isolate him.
Okay, so we just saw how a predator exploits the illusion of empty space. But there's an even more insidious type of isolation.
The kind in public spaces.
Exactly. One where the predator uses the social contract of a dense crowd as a weapon against you.
Yes, the urban commute. It presents this fascinating paradox where you can be surrounded by hundreds of people and still be entirely on your own.
We see this so clearly in our second storyteller's account. She is a woman in her early 20s who has lived in New York City her whole life.
So she's used to crowds.
Very used to them. She describes this grueling 2-hour daily commute involving 2 trains, a bus, and a dimly lit 5-block walk.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. And the first incident she shares happens right on a crowded train car. A homeless man suddenly locks eyes with her and starts angrily insulting her, literally calling her a bitch.
Unprovoked.
Completely unprovoked. She takes out her earbud, her heart starts pounding against her ribs, and she notes this very specific detail. Her ears and face felt intensely hot.
Okay. She is describing the physiological onset of the fight-or-flight response.
So that heat is a physical reaction.
Absolutely. The hypothalamus in the brain perceives a threat and immediately signals the adrenal glands to release a massive surge of adrenaline and cortisol.
Wow.
That heat she felt was her blood vessels dilating, pushing blood to her extremities and her skin to prepare her body for explosive physical action.
Like getting ready to run.
Or fight, yes.
Yet instead of fighting or running, she does something so heartbreakingly common. She desperately tries to make eye contact with the other passengers on the train.
Trying to get someone to help.
Yes, silently begging someone to acknowledge what was happening to her. And every single person just looked away.
And that is so common. We often assume there is safety in numbers, but human psychology in crowds is deeply flawed.
Why does everyone just ignore it?
It's driven by the bystander effect, specifically the diffusion of responsibility.
The diffusion of responsibility.
Right. So if you are the only person witnessing an emergency, your brain knows you carry 100% of the responsibility to act.
Because there's no one else.
Exactly. But if there are 50 people on a train car, your brain subconsciously calculates that you only carry 2% of the burden.
Oh, wow. So everyone feels like someone else will do it.
Yes. People break eye contact to avoid absorbing that responsibility, and honestly, to avoid drawing the aggressor's attention to themselves.
Which makes sense, but for a victim, realizing that a crowd of able-bodied people will choose non-intervention over protecting you, that is a profoundly terrifying realization.
It shatters your trust in society.
And she really is on her own in the second part of her story. She's in grad school now, commuting late. It's past 10:00 p.m.
Okay, so it's dark.
Yeah, very dark. She gets off her bus and has to walk past a few closed stores before turning down a dark residential dead-end street with terrible lighting.
Not an ideal route.
No. But she alters her normal route slightly to check out a Popeyes restaurant because she's craving mac and cheese.
Okay, a random detour.
Right. And when she suddenly changes direction to walk toward the restaurant window, a man from her bus, someone she hadn't even consciously registered, suddenly freezes in his tracks and stares at her wide-eyed.
See, he froze because her sudden, unpredictable change in direction broke the script he was operating under.
He was following her.
He was actively pacing her, waiting for her to enter the bottleneck of that dark, dead-end street, and she ruined his timing.
Well, she realizes something is wrong, and after leaving the Popeyes window to head home, she spots him again.
He's still there.
He is standing right at the entrance of her dark street, just waiting in the shadows.
Terrifying.
She immediately slows down and calls her brother, who miraculously answers and says he is coming out to meet her at the corner.
That is a great move.
It is.
No.
But she still has to close the distance to get there. She passes the man, turns down her street, and he immediately starts following her, perfectly matching her pace.
The stalker's making his move.
Yeah, and he leans in and whispers that he loves her.
Oh, that is so deeply unsettling.
She bails. She turns around and walks rapidly back to a well-lit liquor store on the main avenue to wait for her brother. Now, the stalker approaches her outside the brightly lit store and repeatedly asks, "Do you need help? Are you lost?" over and over as he inches closer.
Right, so he is offering help to gauge her compliance and see if she is still vulnerable.
Wait, I actually struggled to buy that he is just gauging her compliance at this point.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, if he was matching her pace in the dark just moments earlier and whispering that he loved her, the question, "Do you need help?" isn't a test. It is an active, manipulative trap.
That's a fair point.
He is weaponizing her own manners against her, right?
Yeah.
He's trying to force her into a conversation so he can pressure her to walk past him back into the dark street.
That is a crucial distinction, and honestly, you're spot on. He is using the social contract as a cage.
A cage. I like that.
Because we are conditioned from childhood to be polite, to answer direct questions, and to avoid making a scene in public spaces.
Especially women.
Exactly. By framing his aggressive cornering as offering assistance, he is daring her to be perceived as rude by the other people walking past the liquor store.
Wow, that is twisted.
If she answers his question, she is interacting on his terms, which gives him the opening to escalate.
Well, she doesn't fall for it. She loudly says no multiple times, and then she notices a detail that absolutely chilled me.
What was it?
It is post-COVID. It's a warm night. The guy is not wearing a face mask, but he is wearing tightly fitted latex gloves.
Oh, wow. That visual detail is the smoking gun.
Right. Why else would you wear them?
It moves this from a disturbing encounter with a disturbed individual to a calculated, premeditated threat. Wearing latex gloves on a warm night implies an explicit intention to leave no forensic evidence behind.
That is horrifying.
It is a physical indicator that his goals were entirely malicious.
She noted something so profound about those few minutes outside the liquor store. She said, "Time barely moves while you're living through it."
Oh, yes. She experienced tachypsychia.
Tachy 1.
Tachypsychia. Under extreme stress, your brain essentially overclocks its processing speed.
Like a computer.
Exactly. It starts taking in and analyzing far more data, more frames per second, so to speak, than it normally does.
So everything feels slow.
Right. Because your brain is processing so much information so rapidly to formulate a survival strategy, it creates the conscious illusion that time is crawling at a snail's pace.
Well, her strategy worked perfectly. Her brother finally turned the corner. The stalker saw another male into the dynamic, and he immediately retreated into the liquor store to hide.
Smart stalker.
Calling her brother was the ultimate circuit breaker.
It really was. By bringing her brother into the equation, she instantly destroyed the predatory calculus. She was no longer an isolated target, and the risk to the predator just skyrocketed.
So we've examined the psychology of empty rest areas and crowded city commutes. But what happens when the threat bypasses public spaces entirely and follows you to the threshold of your ultimate safe space? Your own front door.
I mean, this represents the most severe psychological violation. The home is where we completely power down our situational awareness.
We just turn it off.
Yeah, we feel safe.
Well, our third account comes from a 19-year-old university student living in a city in southern Europe. It's a freezing cold October night.
Okay.
He's home alone for the weekend because his parents are out of town. He just won second place in a geography quiz at school, so he is in a fantastic mood.
A completely triumphant, ordinary end to a good day.
Exactly. He gets off the last subway of the night and begins the quiet 10-minute walk through his neighborhood to his house.
Just a normal walk home.
And then the silence of the neighborhood is shattered. He hears what he describes as one of the loudest, most blood-curdling screams he has ever heard in his life.
Oh my God.
He emphasizes that it was a man's scream, and it sounded, in his words, like his arms getting cut off.
That is horrific.
He stops, terrified. A second scream echoes out, coming from the exact direction of his house.
Oh.
He starts speed walking, constantly checking over his shoulder.
Yeah.
As he turns the final corner onto his street, he sees a group of 4 or 5 men in dirty, ripped clothes standing about 200 yards away.
A group of them.
Yes, and the absolute second they spot him, all of them start sprinting directly at him.
Wow. Okay, and notice the radical shift in the threat profile here.
It's completely different.
Right. In the first 2 accounts, we analyzed lone stalkers who relied on stealth, isolation, and manipulation. This is a pack dynamic.
They weren't hiding at all.
No, a pack operates on overwhelming sensory input. They do not need the camouflage of predatory mimicry. They rely on shock, awe, and brute force to overwhelm a target before the target can even process the attack.
It is pure adrenaline terror for this kid. He sprints for his front door, which is luckily much closer to him than they are. And then as he reaches the door, his body betrays him.
He drops his keys.
He drops his keys. It's like the ultimate horror movie cliche, but it happened in real life.
Which, while terrifying, is entirely biologically predictable. Yes. We discussed the adrenaline dump earlier, right?
Right, the fight or flight thing.
Well, while that surge of adrenaline gives you a massive boost in gross motor skills, allowing you to sprint faster or punch harder, it actively destroys your fine motor skills.
But why does it destroy them when you need them most? Like sliding a small metal key into a tiny slot.
It's a process called vasoconstriction.
Vasoconstriction.
Yes. The sympathetic nervous system literally shunts blood away from the surface of your skin and your extremities, like your fingers, and forces it into your major muscle groups and vital organs.
Oh, so your fingers actually lose blood.
Exactly. It is a survival mechanism designed to minimize bleeding if you are bitten or cut in a fight.
That is incredible.
But the side effect is that your hands lose their dexterity. Imagine trying to thread a tiny needle while your hands are submerged in a bucket of freezing ice water. Your fingers essentially turn into clumsy paws. He dropped the keys because his body was prioritizing the gross motor function of running over the fine motor function of unlocking.
Well, he thankfully manages to snatch them up, gets the key in, throws himself inside, locks the deadbolt, and stands in his pitch-black hallway just listening.
Waiting for the impact.
He fully expects them to smash the door down. But there's just silence. After checking the windows and seeing a completely empty street, he dials 112, the European equivalent of 911.
Right.
But the dispatcher is wildly unhelpful. She keeps asking if he knows the men, and eventually tells him that since he wasn't physically harmed, they can't really do anything except send a patrol car to drive by later.
That interaction introduces a concept known as secondary trauma.
Secondary trauma.
Yeah. You survive the acute physical threat, But when you seek validation and protection from the systemic authority designed to help you, you are met with bureaucratic indifference.
That makes so much sense.
It completely compounds the feeling of helplessness and isolation.
And it leaves him with so many terrifying unanswered questions, especially because the next night, around 1:00 a.m., he is lying in bed and hears a loud, sharp bang from outside.
Outside his house.
Yes. Like someone intentionally throwing a heavy rock against the wall of his house.
Okay, that rock hitting the house forces us to reevaluate the initial event.
How so?
Think about that blood-curdling scream he heard before the men chased him. Was it genuine? Was there an actual victim being assaulted by that pack in the dark? Or, as he suspects, was it a tactical lure?
A lure? You mean they were screaming on purpose?
Yes. Predators, particularly coordinated groups, will sometimes use screams, cries of pain, or even mimicking a crying baby to draw people out of the safety of their homes.
Oh my God.
Or to pull them off their normal, well-lit paths. It is a tactic designed to turn human empathy against itself, basically turning a good Samaritan into an ambush target.
That is so dark.
If it was a lure, it means this pack was highly coordinated, and that rock hitting his house the next night.
Yeah.
That suggests they tracked his escape route to that specific address. It was a message. They were letting him know that they knew exactly where he lived.
They were telling him they knew his safe space.
It completely shatters the psychological sanctuary of the home.
He mentioned that his family installed heavy security cameras a week later, and thankfully, nothing happened again. But he never got an update from the police.
He just has to live with that.
Yeah, he never found out who they were or what that scream was. He's just left wondering for the rest of his life.
And that lingering uncertainty, the lack of resolution, is often the heaviest burden survivors carry in these situations.
Definitely. So, synthesizing all of this, if we step back and look at the anatomy of all three of these accounts, what are the actionable takeaways for you, the listener?
It comes down to intuition.
Right. In every single scenario, the victims survived because they honored their intuition when their subconscious flagged an anomaly.
Yes.
The teenager abandoning his logic to escape the bathroom, the woman changing her route and calling her brother, the student sprinting at the first sight of the pack rather than waiting to see what they wanted.
And crucially, none of them prioritized social comfort over their physical safety.
That is such an important point.
They did not worry about being polite to people who were actively breaking social contracts. They didn't smile back at the stalker. They aggressively rejected the fake offer for help. They just refused to engage.
They recognized the threat and immediately altered the predatory calculus.
Exactly.
Which brings me to a final unsettling thought I want to leave you with today. When we think about predators, our minds usually conjure up cinematic monsters hiding in dark alleyways, waiting to jump out from behind a dumpster.
The boogeyman, basically.
Right. But in all three of these stories, the danger was hiding in plain sight. It was a guy pretending to use a urinal in a brightly lit bathroom.
It was a man offering to help a lost woman find her way on a public street.
It was an ordinary walk down a familiar neighborhood block.
They completely camouflaged their malice in the absolute mundane.
So the next time you are moving through a completely normal, everyday setting, maybe later tonight on your commute or walking down your own street, trusting those 40 bits of conscious awareness, ask yourself, what seemingly normal, polite behavior happening right around you could actually be a predator script just waiting to be slipped?